One summer moment can change a child's life. Through Toys for Tots Give and Go initiative, your support provides books, games, toys, and outdoor adventures that spark curiosity, creativity, and a love of nature. Whether it's fishing, learning a new sport, reading under a tree, or playing with friends, these moments build confidence and lifelong memories. For too many children, those moments never come. You can help change that this summer. Visit toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots, delivering hope beyond the holidays.
Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Breaking news, WABC.
Well, there's an Irish rebellion going on. Where? Northern Ireland. Well, revolution. And we're going to have General Holt talk about it. What is it all about? Well, I guess they got Northern Ireland got invaded. And the invaders, I guess, have created, a few...
Well, this is really scary, John.
Tell us what happened.
Yeah, this particular case is really frightening. In Belfast, and there are big protests going on right now, and it's all over a Sudanese immigrant who sought asylum, by the way, up there, got granted asylum, and then now went on sort of a stabbing spree, and a horrific one, where he tried to suddenly behead somebody. And it's drawn attention to their very lackluster checks on who's in their country, John. It's sort of a backlash, clearly, of some violent offenders. And let's not forget what happened recently in London, where there was the guy who suddenly went on a stabbing spree there and stabbed some Jewish individuals in London. So you've got all these cases of illegal migrants who are creating havoc and causing some very violent behavior, too, as well. And that's very frightening.
It was happening all over New York.
Yes, I was going to say, and they are waking up there in Belfast.
In New York and Penn Station.
Oh, my goodness. Exactly. And you look at that guy's record, he was a repeat offender. It went on a stabbing spree, 6 people. And you think about everything that's going on. Of course, Penn Station is obviously always pivotal, but you've got, FIFA World Cup, you've got MSG. By the way, a big game tonight, Rudy, with the Knicks.
I want to speak about that, Rita, because I'm really pissed off at New York media because what Wemby did to Brunson, if on a 3-point scale, flagrant fouls, you only allowed 3 points. Wemby already had one, and this was a flagrant one. This would have been a 2-pointer, and he should have been thrown out the game.
I understand President Trump was yelling at the NBA commissioner. So is this a scam? I'm going to tell you what I mean by scam. In other words, they wanted the Spurs to win because they want to drag it out to 7 games.
For money.
And take the money in.
You hit it on the head, Kat. I always can count on you to see through the veil.
Speculation, everyone.
As the attorney would say.
Spoken by the judge.
The do-gooder.
Mere speculation. No allegation, mere speculation.
He used to be a Upper West Side Democratic liberal.
I know. And if I showed the judge the video, this would be an assault.
I saw it.
This would be an assault in all 50 states.
If this was a college football game, the guy would be out for the season.
Exactly. It was very questionable. And you could see President Trump, to John's point,
was upset about it.
He was screaming at Adam Silver, who was right next to him, going, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, I was screaming at the same time.
Yes, it was. And I watched it. I saw it, and I went, whoa, that was a very bad call.
Who's going to talk about that? We got General Holt is going to talk about Ireland and the rebellions going on up there.
And also, by the way, speaking of the other issue, too, is that today President Trump came out and said he is going to hit Iran very hard tonight. And we're going to be talking with KT in 1 second about that. We also have General Arnold Punaro, who's going to talk about that. So what is he going to hit? Because he said that what we did last night was retaliation, but that was just the beginning. And tonight, some big things. There are reports that he might be going after some bridges or other things. We'll see. But remember, John, last time he started striking right around 5 o'clock. So it's right now. This could be strike time once again, John. And then the other thing, right after our show yesterday, John, Steve Hilton officially advanced. Remember, he was on with us, and he said at the time that it looks pretty good, but I won't say anything until the AP officially called it. And then the AP called it, Judge Weinberg.
Absolutely. And he's going to be a great governor. I hope he gets elected.
Well,
it's exactly what the state of California needs to survive.
Well, Judge, that's the other thing that's been, getting at me. What they did to Spencer Pratt. And, he's an insurgent. He doesn't have the money to bring a lawsuit. But the Republicans know that this is going to happen. And if you want Steve Hilton to win, you better safeguard it now. You better bring your legal case while you got some standing with Spencer Pratt. I mean, this is insane. You can keep counting and counting and counting until you get the results you want.
It's absolutely awful. In fact, there's a case in the Supreme Court of the United States that's going to be talking about that issue. Supreme Court will decide it by the end of this month. Just about these ballots that come in after Election Day by abstain. And remember the fault of California. They've legalized this scam because unsolicited, they send in mail-in ballots.
Well,
unsolicited.
The president is doing something about that. He has a bill floating out there. They're using the federal mailing system. So he's using that to get standing in the case. And he's basically going to argue that if you're mailing it out to somebody, you better verify who they are and the fact that they are alive and living where they say they live.
Well, we were talking the other night on the show, Rudy. If they can't sign their name, they can put an X, but they need to have it verified. So the guy who verifies it puts down 2X.
By the way, you brought up also Spencer Pratt. This was interesting. I was watching Steve, our friend Steve Hilton, who was just on with us yesterday. He came out right afterwards and said, yay. First of all, obviously, he was thrilled that he advanced because it's him and Javier Becerra. But then he said he would love to have Spencer Pratt also on the campaign trail. Somebody said, hey, would you like to have him? He said, heck yeah. I'd love to have him all over California.
He's wonderful. Spencer Pratt is one of the great phenomena of politics.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing what he created.
Was stolen from him. He should have finished in the top two. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Well, we had the U.S. attorney on here who was telling us. Remember, John, we had the U.S. attorney who was telling us that if you want to be a new voter to register in California, Rudy, get this: you could use Gym ID.
I know.
As Gym ID.
I was listening.
Oh, you were. It was a big show. I mean, how could you allow Gym ID, health insurance, those kind of things as your official? Here's my ID. I don't have a social security number. I don't have this, but I have a gym membership to Gold's Gym. Right? That really sounds professional.
Let's move on. We got KT McFarland waiting for us on the phone. KT, well, we need you today. What the heck is going on in Ireland?
Who knows what's going on in Ireland?
You're part Irish, aren't you?
With a name like McFarland.
No, McFarland is Scottish. They hate the Irish.
All right.
They think the Irish.
Did you see Braveheart?
KT, did you see what's happening in Belfast? There's all these riots, all these protests.
These policies of open borders and taking in anybody, with a gym card. And calling them basically citizens and giving them massive amounts of social welfare programs. It's bankrupting these countries. It's causing major law and order issues on the streets. And it's causing major, they're not assimilating. They don't want to assimilate. And as a result of that, they're having two sort of separate societies. And in Ireland of all the places, okay, I understand Sweden was going to do it. I understand Belgium was going to do it. But France was going to do it. But somehow Ireland, who would have thought that the Irish would have a problem with illegal immigration and with these large Muslim populations that just go around slashing people?
Well, what happened in London? Didn't that something like that happen in London?
Yeah, this was the guy who was going around stabbing Jewish. That was about a week or two ago. So they've had a lot of problems, KT. And KT, we had Bill O'Reilly, I'll never forget, on about a week and a half ago where he brought up that there's all these Sharia courts, that it's not only they're taking over the legal system.
60 of them.
Isn't that shocking?
Right. You can choose to be dealt with in a Sharia court, and then who knows what kind of justice is served. But I think the most egregious example was just a week ago when the young man who was stabbed by a Muslim immigrant and was starting to bleed out, and the police come, and the Muslim immigrant said, he's a racist. And so the boy who was fatally stabbed, the police handcuffed him. Not the guy who done the stabbing, but the guy who was the victim, and they let him bleed out, and he died.
Oh, my God.
Right.
And
That was the case where...
That's what that big turnout on that weekend was all about.
Yeah.
Right. This is where the cops...
That is
where
horrible.
where the guy who did the stabbing first said, oh, I was the one, I was racially profiled. He was Muslim, and they ended up believing him.
Yeah, even though the other guy was bleeding and bleeding out and saying, I can't breathe. And then
and the cop said, "You're okay. You're okay."
Yeah, while the other guy who did the stabbing is just kind of hanging out over there because they automatically assumed, that it was. They went after the wrong guy.
Well, the prejudice is they'll believe anybody who screams racism or racial profiling. And instead of just even saying, okay, I'm not sure who's at fault here, let's make sure the person who's fatally wounded gets treated. No, they didn't do that. They wrestled him to the ground, and I think the police were complicit in that young man's death.
Wow. KT, while we have you here, we got to ask you about Iran, too. I mean, there is so much happening, and President Trump just coming out a little bit ago saying that he is going to hit them hard tonight. What do you think he's going to do? And did you see there's a statement from one of the Iranian officials? They are like Defiant City. I mean, they are really trying to throw it back in his face and sort of bait the situation.
Yeah, I just keep thinking back to 1972 when Henry Kissinger, my boss, was negotiating the end of the Vietnam War with the North Vietnamese. And they were kind of going back and forth, like Trump is doing today, back and forth. They have an agreement. They don't have an agreement. They pulled out of the agreement, tapping us along, as President Trump was saying. And then Richard Nixon made the decision in Christmas 1972, okay, let's hit them hard. Let's show them there's a penalty to this tapping us along and negotiating not in good faith. So he bombed Haiphong Harbor and he bombed Hanoi. Massive bombings caused major problems, not only military problems, but civilian sites. And so immediately the North Vietnamese asked if they could resume the negotiations with Kissinger, and we got a peace agreement within weeks. And so sometimes that's what you need to do, and I think that's what President Trump is going to do. You can't keep going the way it is.
History repeats itself,
Yeah, and maybe the Iranians take it seriously. We still have a lot of what targets? You were talking about that earlier. What targets would they do? Well, there's still probably 25% of the military targets left. The missile arsenals, the drone arsenals, command and control structures, some of the senior leadership. So I think that's where they go. I don't think they're going to start bombing energy infrastructure. And the reason they won't do that is, well, they can always do that later. That's their sort of final move. President Trump's final move would to obliterate the civilian and economic infrastructure. But President Trump's looking for what happens after the Iran war. You want Iran to rebuild. We don't want to have to occupy it. We don't want to have to rebuild it. And if they can get oil revenues in a new government after an agreement that everybody can monitor and enforce, then you want to have them with the capability of doing that. But I think also what President Trump's doing right now is he's trying to get the Gulf Arabs on board. Because without them, without Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, he already has the UAE, but without all of those countries on board, then it becomes very difficult to, A, verify that Iran is abiding by any agreement, and B, enforce punishment on Iran if they are not, and C, to attack those sites. So let's say Iran starts trying to rebuild. Well, we just bomb them again.
Well, we got a problem on our hands.
Yeah, it's a mess. Hey, KT, what did you make, before we let you go, about you probably heard this, President Trump says that more than 200 commercial ships have safely traveled through the strait. He said he had to put it out there because Iran found out, but he said, look what they've been doing behind the scenes. That's obviously great news.
So what they've done is that every ship will have a transponder, how to ping it like a cell phone. And they turned it off. They turned the transponders off, and then U.S. naval vessels escorted those tankers through the strait. So we have a route. We know there's a route. We know we can do it. We don't want to have to escort everybody. We don't want to have to put that risk and that expense, but we know how to do it if we have to.
Understood. It's like an airplane turning off their transponder.
Right. That's a big deal. 200 of them. Yeah. 200. That's major. Wow. KT, thank you.
That many we're going through a day, so not in a 2-week, 3-week period, but we can get ships through. So when Iran says, oh, well, we've got the straight mind, you guys can't move, we've got you in a barrel. No, we can get through.
Anything else you want to tell us, KT?
It's going to be a really scary couple of weeks with regard to Iran. And I have confidence that President Trump is going to get a deal. It may not be 100% perfect. He's already done an enormous amount of good by destroying Iran's war-making capability. But just give the guy a little bit of time. If it's not working out, there's one thing that Donald Trump is not going to do is, as he says, be a Jimmy Carter.
Thank you so much, KT McFarland, and we'll talk to you again real soon. And thank you for everything you've done for America and continue to speak out for America.
Well, thank you, all of you, for what you're doing.
Thank you.
And you guys, we got a little bit of Knicks news.
Breaking news, WABC.
This just coming out that the mayor is saying that MSG owner James Dolan has just canceled the Knicks watch party outside the stadium. Maybe for security reasons, because there's obviously been a lot of problems with the watch party that took place at Bryant Park, and there was one in Central Park. But Game 4, as Rudy knows all too well, is going to be taking place tonight. And hopefully the Knicks win. Hopefully there's some better reffing.
You mean the watch party around Madison Square Garden?
Yes, it's canceled, apparently.
And the mayor says that Dolan has canceled it?
Yeah, that's what he is saying, that it was Dolan who canceled it. But then there were a lot of problems before, and they moved it out for security. Remember when President Trump was here? So who knows? Maybe there's a reason, too. Maybe we haven't heard that President Trump is going at this point. Maybe there's some other reason.
Well, Kat, the refs take their hands off the scale. The Knicks win.
Yeah, that was a couple
said
bad
the man
calls.
in the orange shirt.
Well,
Yes.
go to Todd Lyons now, Rita?
Absolutely, and there's some big news happening on that.
Breaking news, WABC.
And President Trump just a little bit ago signed the funding bill. So the funding for ICE and Customs and Border Protection after so much fighting by the Democrats who, in a time like this, as we're talking about, didn't want to fund it. But there were enough votes and President Trump signed it. And he said, no more of these politics by Democrats. We have to keep America safe. And joining us now is Todd Lyons, a former acting ICE director. Mr. Director, we love having you here on the show. First of all, great news, finally, that this happened. You could tell there was so much frustration in President Trump's voice that it took this long on something that should be an easy decision.
Yeah, Rita, this really, really took too long. And, kudos to the men and women of DHS, Border Patrol, CBP, and ICE for continuing to be true patriots, go out there and do their job, put their lives on the line every day for having no funding. But it was super bad that the fact that it took this long to have, funding done to do this crucial mission that keeps America safe. And the president, right, we needed this money. And it's going to be a great thing now to have this $70 billion for the rest of the president's term. We're not going to have to deal with being a political football again. We're going to be able to get back out there and keep America safe.
Talk about also what it does, too. I mean, what does this mean? And how long does this mean this battle is over and all of this rhetoric? I mean, we're hearing all the Democrats, everything. In fact, I was watching last night, Graham Plattner, the guy who won on the Democratic side of Maine, almost right away, he talks about mass men swooping people off the street.
Well, yeah, it's not going to stop ICE or CBP, I can tell you that. It's going to fund us through the rest of President Trump's term. We're not going to have any of these threats or shutdown. We're going to be able to do our job. We're going to be able to pay not only the law enforcement officers, but our great intel and our support analysts that are behind us. We're going to be able to afford new technology, make sure the men and women of ICE have the right equipment to keep us safe. But not only that, we're going to be allowed to do our job, right? And now, especially now with FIFA World Cup coming, with America 250, it's crucial to have like special agents from Homeland Security Investigations and Secret Service out there doing the job to make sure nothing like a 9/11 ever happens again. And having this funding is key. Unfortunately, Rita, I don't think the Democrats are going to stop with this kind of rhetoric. We heard Mayor Madami right away, Governor Hochul, they continue to try to block ICE at every turn. And, Secretary Mullins doing a great job of getting out there and explaining exactly what the men and women of DHS, specifically ICE, does every day. And until Democrats really put aside the political hate of the law enforcement mission of ICE, we're going to have to deal with this rhetoric.
Yeah, it is incredible. Judge Weinberg.
Good to talk to you again, Director. The DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, have a unit. They call themselves Red Rabbit. And these guys are trained in military tactics to confront the federal law enforcement. And it's only going to escalate into violence And I think it's up to law enforcement to go after these guys on criminal conspiracy theories, because it seems to me this is insurrectionary conduct on their part. Your thoughts?
Oh, Judge, 100% it is. And, I just saw an article today that kind of my name popped back up in the news about a letter we answered to Democratic Party about databases we kept on individuals tracking ICE. We don't keep databases on people exercising their First Amendment. But to your point, Judge, people that impede with law enforcement, interfere with law enforcement, threaten law enforcement, engage in law enforcement, those are domestic terrorists, right? Those are criminals. You can't just walk up to an NYPD officer in the middle of Times Square when they're doing their job and impede them or attack them. Same with an ICE officer, CBP officer, Border Patrol agent. So we're going to take action on them. And I think the president's doing the right call. I think Secretary Mullen's doing the right call, allowing, DOJ to go full bore and prosecute and look into these groups, especially groups that are being well funded from the left, unfortunately, right? We see a lot of money, a lot of organization going into these protests and these organized groups, especially up in your neck of the woods there, up in Delaney Hall in Newark. That's just not your average citizen want to exercise their First Amendment right. Those that well-organized, planned attack on the men and women of law enforcement.
Yeah, and of all the arrests being made, we've noted that in the last few sessions, is only one was from New Jersey. The rest are imported.
That's the point I wanted to make.
Yeah, it's very frustrating to think, right? If the people in Newark or New Jersey really had a problem or a beef with what was going on in Delaney Hall, I could see that, peaceful protests out front. But no, they're importing really domestic terrorism.
Paid political terrorists.
100%, Judge. You're 100% right.
Rudy Washington.
No, John was making the point that I was going to make, and that media gives this oxygen. I mean, because they never talk about the fact that these people are imported. And then what they do
is they spend $50,000, $100,000 getting these play actors, and then the media gives them advertising worth millions and millions and millions of dollars
and they know what's
around
going
the whole
on.
country, and everybody thinks, oh, this must be the right thing to do.
Right. Everybody, exactly, John.
Yeah, and that's what's frustrating, right, is you'll see it constantly play on a loop on various media outlets that it just seems like it's the right thing to do, to stand in front of a law enforcement vehicle, to get up in the face of a law enforcement officer. It's okay to put your hands on them. It just automatically becomes the norm. But there's no media outlets in mainstream media that's, showing the ICE officers that are getting bit through their hands, getting bit in their arms, getting things thrown at them, rocks, when they actually show up with pickup trucks with broken up pieces of concrete that they're throwing at vehicles. We don't see that, right? You see these, all the poor protesters that are being indiscriminately sprayed with pepper spray. Well, if you don't stand in front of a law enforcement vehicle, you're probably not going to get pepper sprayed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, they just happen to be there. One of the things, too, also, before we let you go, Director Lyons, Todd Holman was on our show last week, and he was talking about how they're going to flood the zone in New York. And it goes right to the point that this new New York State, quote, sanctuary law is saying no local cooperation. So he said, we have to flood the zone because they're not handing them over in the jails. They're not handing them over here. We have to flood the zone because we're going to need now 5 or 6 times more the amount of men to get somebody that it would have been a simple transfer before.
Right. Reed, and that's the sad thing, too. Because if you think about it, all they're asking, and Mr. Holman does a great job of pointing this out, they're already in jail because whether it be Suffolk County or NYPD or the transit cops, they arrested them and put them in jail because they're a public safety threat. So why not turn them over in a safe, secure environment to another law enforcement agency? It makes absolutely no sense to let a public safety threat that might escape and get away, it might be a false identity, some might be wanted in another country. Why would you let them back into the neighborhood to be a perpetrator again? It makes no sense. It doesn't make...
Todd Lyons, you see what's going on in Ireland. They're rebelling against their invaders.
It is. And, that incident in Belfast with that Somali migrant this weekend, I think it's very eye-opening when you have a wide-open border system with improper vetting. And unfortunately, we saw that previously under the last administration when you have, a porous border with improper vetting where you have to go back and try to figure out who you let in And when you have the opportunity to take custody of these individuals after they committed a crime, it absolutely makes no sense to the common man or woman why you would let them back out on the street to commit crime again.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and keep fighting for America.
Yeah, thank you, Director. We love you. Thank you so much.
Great talking to you guys. Hope
You too. We'll look forward to always welcome here. And you guys, we're going to take a break, and then we have John Solomon. He always has some big scoops. He's on right after the break.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC. Breaking news, WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby, and he always has the latest breaking news. Let's go right to the founder of Just the News, the great investigative journalist, John Solomon. John, what do you got today?
Well, an awful lot. Let's start with what the president announced just a little bit ago, that we are going to resume military operations against Iran because they have dragged out the negotiations, acted in bad faith, and acted with aggression against U.S. forces and U.S. allies in the Middle East, despite a ceasefire. So we expect tonight and into tomorrow and the next days for Iran to pay a dear price at the expense of our military. I would pay close attention to see how much the United States military focuses in the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard. Those are the most radical forces at the table. They've been the resisting of the peace deal more than the civilians. Maybe the president makes them pay a price for all of these military attacks, including shooting down our helicopter yesterday or 2 days ago in the Gulf. So those are the number one thing that is we're watching right now.
Well, absolutely, that's what he's going to do, because the president is not going to go after civilians. He's going to go after the IRGC. You know?
Oh, yeah.
And pound them hard.
About it.
Yes.
I mean, I think this is going to be painful.
There should be a payback against the people responsible.
John, this is Rudy Washington. I've been saying from the very beginning, we should have been this a long time ago. And I hope this is the end game and not just, okay, we're going to hit them and stop. No, we should finish this.
I think the pause, my reporting indicates that the pause in the military operation may not have been as gratuitous to Iran as it's been made to be, but the fact that we were short on bullets, i.e. missiles and defense Patriot missiles. So we may have bought ourselves some time, and it looks awkward to us. Right? Like, why would Donald Trump stop when we had him on the ropes? I think we were a little shy on missiles. And I think that the last 6 to 8 weeks have allowed our supply chain to get back up into a fighting position. And that's why now we're not going to play any more games. We've been resupplied. We've got both defensive missiles, i.e. Patriots, and then, of course, the Tomahawks and the smart bombs that come in to do this. But I think when history looks back and we learn in a few years, we'll find out that this pause might have been a disruption in the military supply chain when we're all done. Now, meanwhile, there was quite a moment today on Capitol Hill. I don't want to miss this moment because we wrote the original stories on Act Blue 2.5 years ago. You've been so kind to WABC to cover this story alongside of us. Let me come and talk about it today. Act Blue's CEO showed up for testimony, and time again.
She took the fifth.
Oh, my goodness.
By the way,
give her credit. She found 10 different ways to
I've never seen her. Right, I've never seen someone take the fifth in so many different directions.
It almost was entertaining. I'm sure it was uncomfortable for her, but it was very entertaining to see all the different ways she said the same thing. What does that tell you? Well, we just talked to Brian.
Guilty. That's what it tells you.
There's something she's hiding, and she has significant criminal liability for. And listen, whenever you find out that your law firm thinks you lied to Congress, you're probably in big trouble. And that's what we learned in the New York Times a month ago, that the Act Blue's law firm believed that they misled Congress. That was the main focus of the issue today. And, of course, the Fifth Amendment was all she could answer. I do think that Act Blue is going to be a big story coming into the fall elections. I think with the criminal probe going on now, in addition to the congressional probe. And also we see a remarkable drop in Act Blue donations since we tightened up their credit card requirements. So maybe that was how they were getting so much money in. I think Act Blue is going to become one of the big political scandals in the fall going into the 26th election.
Wow,
that is a biggie. That's a real biggie. By the way, you also had some other interesting stuff on the Olympics, like with the Chinese military.
Oh, my goodness. You just have to ask yourself, how does these things happen in Washington? But they do often. There is, as you know, a lot of technology that China procures around the world. And it and some of it has worked its way into the supply chain and into other places. And one of the places was the host Olympic Committee in Los Angeles is partnering with Alibaba. That's a pretty well-known, pretty famous Chinese company. They do a lot of marketing in the United States now. If you're online, you get an Alibaba ad every so often here and there. Well, it's ironic that the host committee for the LA Olympics would be hiring a partner that our own Department of War says is a Chinese military front. And so, yeah, we made the connection. Sure, Alibaba's, when we say partnering, Alibaba is donating money to the LA Olympics. And this is a company that the Pentagon puts on its watch list as companies of concern tied to the Chinese military. So we thought that was important for people to know, and we connected the dots today. And a good story by my colleague, Jerry Dunleavy.
By the way, I don't know if you just saw this, as Seattle's mayor is now opening 50 tiny shelter units, like a little, of course, homeless problem's huge there in Seattle. And she's like she's a socialist beacon.
And also she just put a ban or a moratorium on data centers, which is funny because you're home of big tech and they don't want to have data centers in big tech world anymore. It's very interesting to watch the dynamic. I think she's the West Coast version of Mayor Mondami, and what you're beginning to see now is all those liberal tech titans. They're starting to have some buyer's remorse that they have a socialist mayor. I can't wait to see how that plays out. Probably similar to how things are going to play out in the Big Apple with Mayor Mondami.
Yeah, great points.
Anything else, John, before we go to a break?
Just going to be keeping an eye all night long. We have our team up watching when those missiles begin to fly and the military action begins to happen, because we'll have a better sense exactly what the targets are and what the president's objective is. But I think this will be a long campaign, several days, and Iran will come out even more defeated than it was in the last round of attacks.
Let's hope so.
John Solomon, thank you for everything you do, and thank you for the intelligence.
Anytime. We appreciate coming on. I love your show.
Yeah, we love you, John. We're so happy to have you. Thank
let's
you.
go to a break. We got some top news of the day, too.
Absolutely. We got a lot here, John.
No sponsor today, though.
It's the top news of the day. Here's Rita Cosby.
But coming soon. Here we go, you guys, as we were hearing from John Solomon. President Trump says the U.S. transported millions of barrels of oil through the Strait of Hormuz in a secret mission. He said Iran was unaware of the effort until now, when he told reporters in the Oval Office today. Meanwhile, Trump also said that he is preparing to hit Iran very hard tonight after an exchange of fire between the countries. And that started with, of course, the downing by Iran of a U.S. Army helicopter. By the way, the drone, the missile that actually came into the helicopter stayed in the helicopter. And that's how President Trump said today that he knew it was Iran. He said,
it could have blown up.
Yeah,
it was explosive.
I know. Isn't that wild?
They got just out just in time.
They got it out just in time. And also Trump said at first the Iranians denied it, but then he said they actually had the missile. They found it and they could tie it directly to Iran, and then they finally admitted, yeah, we did it. So that's the backstory there.
Well, it's, go back to the chimps and the gorillas.
Yeah, you were right on.
Yeah,
you were right
IRGCs, the gorillas.
I would say the gorillas need to get pounded, John. That's my thought. What do you think?
Pound them, because they're the ones. Let's not go after these civilians. Let's go after the bad guys.
Absolutely.
In this now.
Yeah, end it now. And you guys, on a happy note, Republican Steve Hilton, who was just on with us yesterday, a few minutes after he was on with us, he got the great news that he won the second spot in the race for California governor. He's going to face Democrat Javier Becerra in the November election. And Tom Steyer, who was in the race, he came in third place. He spent over $200 million of his own money.
Wow.
I would call that a bad investment.
Is that California money?
Yeah, you're right. What would that be in New York?
Rita, I bet you there's some political operatives that are saying, give us $100 million, we would have insured you being governor.
Yeah, exactly,
in
right.
California.
Yeah, maybe he didn't talk to the right people, right?
Yeah, he didn't talk to the right people.
Well, let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to go to Maine to find out what the heck happened last night in Maine. Let's take that break.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC. Breaking news, WABC.
Well, let's go to Maine.
Absolutely. A huge night there. Graham Plattner proceeds, and he won handily. Joining us now to talk about what's in the water in Maine.
Yesterday, Sean Spicer says if he gets less than 80%,
and he did,
he's not really. Democrats really didn't like him.
Not a full
let's
stamp.
go to the GOP chairman.
Yep, absolutely. Great point. Let's go to Jim DeArmond. He is the main GOP chair. Jim, what happened there? And first, what do you make of Graham Plattner? And he came out swinging last night. When he came out, he was going after Susan Collins, Trump, but he didn't get the 80%, to John's point.
No, thanks for having me on. But I tell you, if you see him coming out swinging, if you're a female, you need to duck. With his history,
good point.
His history is horrible, and I hate to say this to my good friends in New York, but unfortunately, you bear some of the blame up here with Chuck Schumer and AOC backing this guy and recruiting him.
You know, Jim, it's disgusting to see. I'll tell you, as a woman, and I think everybody should be offended by this guy. I mean, the comments he made about women, if they got raped, basically they should just kind of act like adults. The women who've accused him, that one, of course, the former ex-girlfriend for 3 years, says he was very physical with her. I mean, it's frightening to hear this. And you're right. And then what he said about African Americans and gays and veterans, the list goes on and on. Is this the best that the Democratic Party has? It's a disgrace.
Well, a regular old-time Democrat can no longer get elected up here, just like many areas of the country. And they have really gone deep socialist. And to this guy who actually brags about being a communist as well. So he is up against Susan Collins, and for whatever, a lot of people wish she would be a little bit more MAGA, a little bit more hardcore, but she has to get elected in Maine, where Republicans are slightly outnumbered from Democrats. But she is a ferocious campaigner. She may look like a delicate wallflower, but Susan Collins has had many, many races where she's been behind in the polls, and then election day or election night, she's getting crowned, and I believe it's going to happen again. The last time she ran for office, election day, she was behind she was behind several points, maybe almost 10. And when the ballots were all counted, she kicked butt and she beat their opponent by 9 points. And I think that's what's going to happen again. But the opponent back then didn't have the history that this guy has. I mean, he is the gift that keeps on giving to us, and you almost feel like you can't say everything every day, the new stories that come out. You got to temper them a little bit because people are starting to get shell-shocked, I think. But I think there's a lot worse coming out. This is not by far, this is not the least of it, but it's sickening, disgusting. And even John Fetterman had the greatest line, I thought. He said, he's lied to America. Being a dirtbag is not authentic. Being a dirtbag is just being a dirtbag, and Graham Plattner is a dirtbag.
Now, our friend Jonathan Bush, a member of the Bush family, didn't come out too well. What happened with Jonathan Bush?
Well, we had, finally election night, we had 7 Republicans running for governor. So there's a lot of people to split the vote up. And Jonathan came out of the back of the pack. And you got to remember, up here in Maine, unfortunately, we're stuck with a horrible thing called ranked choice voting. So our winners in the gubernatorial race still haven't been picked yet. They have to go through another cycle of mashing the vote.
I didn't realize that. We didn't realize that. Thanks for telling us that.
It's ranked choice. I'm actually right.
He still has a shot. He's still in the top 3.
Oh, that's
so the top 3 are going to be ranked?
I was just looking at it. It's ranked choice, right?
Another ranking, and they go through several rankings until they find someone who gets 51% of the vote.
And New Yorkers got screwed on
Montgomery.
with
the
mayor's race.
That's how Montgomery came in.
I mean, some of our old friends from the Reform Party were pushing that.
It's incredible. But, if anyone ever tries to jam ranked choice voting down your throat, stand up. And fight like
it is
hell.
the worst.
Crazy.
Is it dumber than dumb?
It is. It's a Democratic ploy, but I think this particular case, they had 3 or 4 candidates running, and their golden candidate may not come out of the pack. They may be the victim of their own mess.
Wow.
And by the way, and I know obviously you're on the Republican side, but Have you heard any grumblings, Jim, about, there was always this story that depending how he did, obviously he won Graham Plattner, but there's still, Maine has some interesting stuff, as you know, where like 2 weeks, they can replace him out. They could do a Kamala Harris and put somebody else in there, right, on the Democratic side?
Yeah, but the problem is the other people have, they only have a certain amount of candidates, and they keep going to the well to reuse them. But those people are tied up in other races right now. So it would be pretty tough. And Maine, I'm sorry to say, like New York, the Democrats, they don't have a break. Once they put their mind to something, they're going to go forward. They're not going to pull up short. They're going to go on. And, when the spotlight shines on them, what do? They double down. They're going to double down with Graham Plattner and ride that donkey to the end.
Well, thank you, Jim Dyersman. Thank you from GOP Chairman of Maine. Thank you for coming on and stay in touch with us. By the way, I love Susan Collins, and I was an old big supporter of Olympia Snow in those days, and we need some common sense in Maine, and please try to maintain common sense.
Thank you, Jim.
I will. We're fighting hard here, and people just got to understand he brings a lot of bad publicity to Maine, and that's not the way Maine is. Unfortunately, there's a district along the coast because of the way the last elections were run. The southern coastline of Maine is heavily Democratic, but when you get 10 miles away from the ocean in Maine, it's hardcore Republican country. Problem is there just aren't that many people in Maine. It's pretty sparse as you get away from the ocean.
But it's a beautiful state. Thank you.
Thank you
Jim.
so much. Stay in touch.
Thank you. I love being on with you folks.
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you. Now let's go to General Arnold Panero.
Absolutely. And he, of course, is retired U.S. Marine Corps Major General, John, Director also of Marine Corps Reserve, CEO of Panero Group. General, what do you think is going to happen here with Iran? That's the big story. President Trump saying he is going to pound them tonight.
Well, Rita, John, privileged to be with you. And let's face it, the ceasefire is a ceasefire in name only because Iran has violated it and clearly crossed the red line, committed a mortal sin when they went after and tried to kill our troops in the Apache helicopter. So the commander-in-chief appropriately had a proportional response executed flawlessly by our U.S. military. He's indicated that's going to continue. The Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, made an announcement after a White House meeting here within recent minutes that it's going to continue. I think that's very appropriate. We've got to keep both the military and the economic pressure on Iran. They've not been negotiating in good faith, and I think the commander-in-chief is very correct in the actions that he's taking.
General Panero, how come we haven't leveled anything tied to the IRGC to the ground already? I mean, to me, that would be the first place. They're clearly a huge impediment to peace.
I totally agree, and that's been one of my comments that, they should be one of the primary military targets. Their leadership, their command and control, their cantonment areas. I mean, they've kind of dispersed like roaches, into the civilian population, making it tougher to get at them one by one. But they've still got a lot of facilities that should be on the target list. I mean, as a military guy that is very familiar with our contingency plans for Iran, we call it a target-rich environment. They ought to be a principal target. They are the hardliners. They're the ones causing all the problems, although the Ayatollahs no cupcakes or anything to write home about. But you're right. Those ought to be primary, and they're legitimate combatants. These are military targets.
How is Iran getting lucky and getting even an Apache down? An Apache, $64 million. They're using like a $20,000 drone.
Well, look, Rita and John, you both know there's something that we in the military call Murphy's Laws. Bad things are going to happen. We have a tremendous number of capabilities out there. They were doing a normal patrol, and they got lucky. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
By the way, we just got some breaking news.
Okay.
U.S. strikes against Iran has begun.
Okay. Second night of strikes.
As predicted, as announced and as predicted. And my hope is there will be of the sufficient nature against these very appropriate military targets to keep that pressure on Iran, because they are backsliding when it comes to negotiations and, frankly, have continued to violate the ceasefire. It's a ceasefire in name only. I mean, I was in a couple of military shooting wars where people were told we're in a ceasefire, but the enemy never gets the word. And I never found that people claim we are in a ceasefire. The other side, the bad guys, were always violating it. So I have no confidence Iran is ever going to honor the ceasefire.
You know, President Trump seems fed up. And the fact that now they have just started, again, everybody, if you're just listening here on Katz and Cosby, just started the second night of U.S. strikes against Iran. Obviously, they downed that Apache helicopter. Luckily, the pilots, all okay. They were rescued. But President Trump said they will pay a dear price. It seems like President Trump is so fed up. You know, I was watching him today in the Oval Office, General, and his language seems to have changed even in the last day or two. My sort of interpretation. He just said, listen, there were a lot of, he even used this phrase, there were a lot of suckers before that were in the Oval Office. He referred to kind of Obama and Biden giving Iran a pass. And he says, you know, it's a whole new day. It's a different world. And, you know, and maybe we can pound them a little bit and bring them to the table. Or if not, we're just going to keep pounding. He seems like he's resolute now.
Well, Rita, he should be fed up. And I think basically he showed immense resilience and patience as Iran was dragging things out. And like I said, they crossed that red line, committed a mortal sin when they tried to kill our troops. And so, you know, you would have thought that the fact that they're losing billions and billions of dollars and the economic pressure, and you would have thought that the way we basically significantly degraded their ability to produce a nuclear weapon, have access to the enriched uranium, be able to export terrorism to their proxies, although they stirred the pot with their proxies a couple of days ago. The Houthis have gone back into action. Hezbollah is going after Israel. So I think the president is correct in his views of we're unfortunately going to have to basically reattack with our military to intensify the military pressure on Iran.
General, Rita's on later on. Maybe you go on with her and see what happened with all the strikes.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll be in touch with you, General.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you so much. We love having you on. Thank you so much.
And now, let's go to Doug Schoen, a member of the Democratic Party, a Democratic strategist, to find out, especially with this win up in Maine, what the heck is going on in the Democratic Party? And I'm going to ask Judge Richard Weinberg, a registered Democrat, to talk to Doug. And Doug is a friend, and Richard is a friend. You guys talk.
So
happy to do it, Richard. I think this guy is really toxic, as one woman described him to be. I think he could hurt
one woman. I would say all female kind describe him as that, Doug, but go ahead.
Well, one specifically used that word. I certainly think it's a fair term. I wouldn't have used it otherwise. But I think he could hurt the Democratic ticket from Senate, governor, Congress down the line in Maine. I also think nationally, he and somebody like El Said and Tallarico in Texas could basically create an issue for the Republicans where none need exist. The far left progressives, the Democratic socialists, basically trying to take over the party, but also take over control of the Senate, which to me is very dangerous and very, very disturbing.
Doug, I agree with you. Absolutely. What troubles me, and I'm still, the registered Democrat, and using Reagan's line, my party, I didn't leave my party left me. Do you think there's a chance that the Democrats can come back to the center in common sense and reestablish a great party? Because right now the momentum seems to be with the Islamists and the socialists.
I wish I could say yes, Richard, but I remain a Democrat myself. But this is not the Democratic Party I joined many, many years ago. It is something very different.
Well, and I think your point is well taken. I think if the Republicans run a good national campaign, the poster child for what the Democratic Party has become and the threats to our great republic, having people like Plattner or El Said or the kid from Texas in the United States Senate, that's the people you want to govern the future of this country. It's impossible to believe that we turn over the governance to people like that.
I completely agree. And I just think that if the Republicans are smart and they're certainly able to run good campaigns, they will basically say, do you want Graham Plattner and El Said, the front runner in Michigan, running the Senate? Because they will be the balance of power if the Democrats should win the Senate. That's, obviously up for grabs. But I, for one, do not want somebody like Plattner, like El Sayed, who, basically hate America, hate our foreign policy, hate the war in Iran, and fundamentally hate Israel, to be making decisions.
But especially look at the candidates against them. You have Susan Collins, who's one of the most common sense, centrist, bipartisan people, a woman of great strength and courage, a very decent person. She deserves to be reelected. That's in Maine. And in Michigan, you have Mike Rogers, a common sense guy, former Marine.
Former FBI, and he was chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, really understands national security. That's the kind of person you want in the Senate to protect this country.
I wish I could disagree with you, but how can I? So, and, John, you used to be a Democrat. These Democrats are not the Democrats we knew in the Clinton era.
Yeah, I was a Bill Clinton Democrat.
Right. And I remain a Bill Clinton Democrat, but there are very few of us left.
I know.
How about Adam Homoy? This is the guy in New Jersey. This is so
for the blind sheep.
Yes, exactly.
He was the aide de camp to the blind sheep. He was a translator for the blind sheep.
And
he knew exactly what was going on.
And he translated at the time. He translated with them from 91 to 93. And guess what happened? The World Trade Center bombing, the first one, 93.
This guy was lucky he didn't get indicted by a grand jury in the Southern District of New York.
And instead, he volunteered as a character witness. I mean, Doug, this to me is shocking that somebody like that would be anything other than dog catcher.
No, I wouldn't have his dog catcher.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust my dogs. I wouldn't trust my dogs with him.
You shouldn't.
Doug, this is Rudy. I think a bigger question I think we need to ask ourselves is what's happening to the American people? That these people can get elected. I mean,
it's a very good, Woody. It's a very good question. Basically, people are so angry with government and so angry with the establishment that the far left, people like Plattner, run against the establishment and people vote for them because they're not insiders. They're not in control of the levers of power. And that's a very dangerous situation.
Yeah, it sure is. Well, Doug Schoen, pray for the Democrats, pray for America, pray for GOP.
We need common sense to come back to the Democratic Party.
At least have some success.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And you guys, we're going to take a break. We're going to talk to General Blaine Holt. He's got the inside scoop there about Belfast.
Ireland.
Yeah.
And, well, I guess maybe I'll have some updated information on what's going on in Iran.
To Cosby on 77 WABC. Breaking news, WABC.
Well, with us today is General Blaine Holt. And, General, there's a lot of things happening. What do you...
Yeah, boy. And, Blaine, I don't know if you just saw this, but CENTCOM just put out a big breaking news here that they just started extra strikes pounding at 5:15 p.m. against, they say, multiple targets in Iran at the president's direction. The strikes, they say, are in response to Iran's unwanted and continued aggression. So President Trump making sure the whole world knows they have started again, and they're going to pound them tonight.
General, who are we hitting?
Well, welcome to the closing act of the IRGC. This is one of the worst terror groups and evil, venomous psychopaths on our planet, and President Trump has now hit the green light, and B-52s are servicing targets, as we like to say, and they're servicing the end of the IRGC. This is wonderful, but we know that this is the end game because the president gave away the cat and said, hey, we've been taking millions of barrels of oil. They haven't even noticed. This is it, guys. This is the final act.
Well, I mean, this is dumber than dumber. I mean, they turned off the what do you call it? The
transponders.
The transponders
yeah.
On the ships.
And the Iranians didn't even know.
Yeah, that's what he said. They didn't know until he announced it at the White House. After he said it, he said, here it is. Now they're going to know. 200, John.
General, how dumb can they be?
Well, they might be dumb, but they also might not wanted to admit that we had secured Karg Island, and I don't know how you would have done it otherwise. So I'm gonna guess that.
Wait a minute. Wait.
Whoa.
Wait a minute. Yeah, go back.
Go back.
The judge and I both.
Whoa. Everybody hold up.
Yeah, go ahead. Explain that one.
Well, we're going to find out how that operation happened, but I don't know how you're going to get that oil out without offloading that oil out of storage containers onto ships. And I don't know how you can do that without having control of Carg Island. So that's speculation on my part. But if somebody else can tell me how magically empty tankers show up and get Iranian oil and they take millions of barrels, without any help on the ground in Carg Island.
That is breaking news.
That's breaking speculation.
Yeah, let's do a little breaking. Hold on, here we go. Let's do a little breaking news on that.
Breaking news, WABC.
So,
breaking speculation.
Yeah, so your opinion is?
My opinion is that we probably secured Carg Island to get the storage units emptied into tankers to save the oil and the oil fields.
And the Iranians would admit it.
We talked about that last week.
And the Iranians would not admit it.
Can't admit that because they're admitting it to their own people. And then their own people will go, oh, well, you guys are ready for the taking.
Right. And so now he's going to pummel. So let's go to the IRGC, the lovely end of the IRGC, hopefully soon. Obviously, they're going to hit, I would assume, headquarters, right? IRGC headquarters. What else are they going to hit to really decimate these evil folks?
So the IRGC also had launched weapons earlier in the week. Now we know where all those launchers are, so we probably service those targets. Command and control nodes, besiege headquarters, anything that's going to help get the revolution underway, and anything that's going to keep the IRGC from being able to launch any more weapons. But here's my caution, and I have a big one. Let's not forget that this is an extinction event for the IRGC, and if they have anything left in their bag as they go become martyrs, well, and I'm thinking about terror cells here in the United States, well, they will activate them. We don't know if those orders would be followed, and we don't know what they have, but I would be very careful on a domestic security footing while we get this deal closed out.
You know, it's interesting. We had KT McFarland playing earlier on in the hour, and yeah, it was so great. Of course, former Deputy National Security Advisor under Trump. And her line to us was, with this news breaking that they were about to do the pummeling. It hadn't happened yet, but it was about 2 minutes away. She said that we have some pretty dark, tough days ahead of us. And I assume some of it is like what you're describing, that desperate people do desperate things.
They do. And last night on Iranian news, they broadcast out on their own news station CGI or AI graphics of Western cities with nuclear weapons going off in them. It doesn't mean they have those capabilities, but those were threats aimed at us. And again, we had 4 years of open borders. We know there are terror cells here. One has to wonder if the terror cells would follow any kind of orders, knowing that it's the end of their parent organization. But who knows? They've been here. They've been collecting intelligence on us. And so I'm not trying to strike fear into anybody. I'm trying to strike a sense of caution. See something, say something. Look around you. Your country is getting busy with ending one of the scourges of this planet for 47 years. And they might go out with a bang, and we got to be careful.
That's a very good point. Well, General Blaine Holt, thank you so much for bringing all the American people up to date. And you know what we all stand for.
Yeah, keep us posted, Blaine.
Truth, justice, and the American way.
American way.
America.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Katz and Cosby with John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby. You can hear Katz and Cosby weekdays at 5. It's the 5 o'clock show on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Get ready, Staten Island.
Tonight, the Ferry Hawks host the Hagerstown Flying Boxcars with first pitch at 6:30. Thursday, it's a doubleheader starting at 4 p.m. with Jewish Heritage Night. As for this game, the Ferry Hawks will play as the Staten Island Menches. Friday at 7 p.m., it's soccer night and kids glow around the bases postgame. Saturday at 6:30, it's Broadway night with postgame fireworks and Broadway rave. Sunday at 1:30, it's Military Appreciation Day and the kids run around the bases.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.